I'm supposed to look at you again?
Yeah, you are supposed to look at me. That got caught on live. What up, Facebook Live family and friends? Elliot Andre, the head therapist, wearing Pikachu today from Connected Roots, is here with a dear colleague and friend of mine, Joanna Lilley. She is an amazing human, likes to laugh a lot, and is a badass ed consultant. So, Joanna, tell the people out there who you are, what you do, what differentiates you from the crowd. Take it away.
Aside from the fact that I have perfect timing, my name is Joanna. Obviously, like Elliot said, I'm a therapeutic educational consultant in Colorado. I'm working with young adults only, so that's what separates me from the pack. I work ideally my age range population truly is about 17 and almost 10 months, and then more 25 plus year olds. So really the college age population, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. I love that. And I think one thing that I think our viewers out there would really like you to explain a little bit better is what an ed consultant is, or a therapeutic ed consultant is. Because sometimes people, view this channel, friends and family out there. Thumbs up if I've interviewed somebody and you're like, what are they talking about? So let's right? Just give us a shtick spiel about what that looks like, what that feels like, and what that is for the viewers out there. Yeah.
So ultimately, an educational consultant is, I'll break that one down for you first. An educational consultant is what a person that a family hires to help with resources. So you might, most notoriously, educational consultants are known for kind of their college admission support. So in that case, that would be kind of a college consultant. However, it goes under the educational consultant umbrella. Now, for me specifically, because I'm therapeutic, all of the work that I'm doing is therapeutic placements or finding local therapeutic resources for those young adults. So that could be, finding a local IOP. It could be finding a life coach. Hey, it could it could be a therapist. It could be truly, it's whatever it is that young adult and really the entire family needs. So ultimately finding them those supports. But when a family ends up finding me, quite honestly, is when they're in crisis and they've most often actually exhausted their local resources.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you broke that down super well. If you could, I think in regards of this word crisis, because again, people have a mindset, and this is only from my experience generally working with clients, they don't feel like crisis is what a therapist would think crisis is.
Sure.
So if you could give our viewers out there an idea of what a crisis is or what generally occurs when something like that is happening, so people can kind of get off their ass, light the fire, and actually realize they might not want to admit they're in crisis, but they definitely are.
Yeah. So that's actually a good point. I feel like there's two things that I need to highlight with that. When a family sees themselves in crisis, it is this is the alarm bells are ringing. The parents are like, oh my gosh, we need to get them into a placement yesterday. And so that is a common occurrence when families are contacting me. However, quite frankly, parents don't really think to find me or my type of role as a resource. So oftentimes they're doing a lot of the research on their own, which they find out is a full-time job in them, in itself, to do the research, to make the phone calls, to identify who would be appropriate therapeutically, who has space, if it's affordable, all that stuff. Where it's that we as mental health professionals identify it as a crisis. Oftentimes I have a family or a young adult that's working with a therapist, and the therapist sees it as a crisis. And the therapist, with a limited release, then shares with the parents, this is a concern. At this point, I've actually kind of maxed out what I can do. And I'm strongly recommending, we see the writing on the wall. You as a family system don't, because you are so thick in the weeds, which we get it, right? You're human. Once you're in it, you can't see it. So we've got the bird's eye view. The therapist is actually usually the one that would make a referral for the family to connect with me. And that's when it's more of a proactive, the crisis is on the horizon, but we're not talking about fire alarm going off right this moment. So there's kind of two levels of crisis where a family might end up reaching out to me.
So I think you're like the middle person, we'll say, in some regards, if we want to put a label on it, that already has done the research, already has taken the steps to have the connections and communication with so many different resources around locally or nationally. And just know, but I mean, you're like, you know where they need to go, you know what they need to do. And you really, I think, take a lot of burden off the family to do that, which is so necessary. I think families, and I'm sure you can relate to this, I'm sure families already have enough shit to get going on, you know, with work, other kids, you know, and it all affects people. We were talking earlier before we got on about how the family unit can be affected by any which person who's struggling, you know, whether it be depression, whatever. But it totally spills in to everything and anything that people are dealing with. So with that being said, you know, what does that look like and how do you manage it? Because I think people really tangibly want to know what the fuck you do, like on the ground running, you know, seriously. Because I mean, I didn't know what an educational consultant, therapy educational consultant was when I first got in the field. I was like, they're just there to take money. So, you know, right? But that was my dumb ass. Like, I was like, like, what do they do? You know? So please, like, what does that look like? I think people, you know, viewers out there, thumbs up, seriously. If you people out there want to know how Joanna can help you.
Yeah. So I will start by saying that every family is different. So, right, like what it is that they are wanting, what it is that they've already exhausted. Like I'm not the consultant that jumps immediately to the like, well, I've got this place that I would recommend that's 3,000 miles away, which I think sometimes actually is a stereotype that goes with some educational consultants or people that have worked with consultants in the past. In all fairness, because I am clinically trained, I really want to do that information gathering on the front end. Are we sure that we have not maxed out all of our local resources first? So to speak to your point about what the F do I actually do? I often am describing myself to parents as I'm the matchmaker, I'm the researcher, I'm the resource connector. And you hit the nail on the head by saying that I ultimately lift the weight off parents. I can't tell you the number of times that families have contacted me, even if they don't hire me, where they just say, gosh, I wish I knew that you existed before, because I literally have, you know, taken leave from my job to be able to sit down and make calls and do the case management for my family. Right. So anyways, and then speaking of which, that kind of translates into when a family does decide that they see the benefit of hiring me, which speaking of money, I tend to say that I'm the least expensive in this entire process, yet I'll be the most valuable financially because I'm going to save the family money, right? Like, woo!
MVP! Kobe Bryant, right? That's you. Yes.
Oh, I swear I'm humble. I swear.
No, you don't need to be humble. Please.
So anyways, once the family actually hires me, I continue to lift all the weight off their shoulders. I'm the one who continues to be a bridge between every part in this process. So if we're looking at primary or like a residential placement, substance abuse treatment, you name it, I'm the one who's communicating with the programs. I'm bridging the family, just helping them, you know, like all they have to do is fill out the application. Because I've done all of the work on the front end for them. Like the staff knows they're a good fit. They have space. We've talked to the young adult. They're on board. Like everything's good. And then once they're actually in treatment, then I get to do case management. So I'm still in touch with the staff, specifically the clinicians from the program, just to make sure, hey, how's everything going? Not because I'm telling them how to do their job. I would never do that. In fact, I'm recommending my client to them because I believe that they can actually do the clinical work that's necessary for my client. It's just to kind of keep tabs on the progress and the process. What clinically is this staff or the team seeing, especially in terms of recommendations for next steps? So I don't like to call that aftercare because I feel like, honestly, it's always continued care. Exactly. And it is such a continuum. So hiring a consultant allows the family to have a consistent voice or representative that's not affiliated with a specific program and is not biased within the family system to kind of keep that objective voice along the entire process.
Unreal.
Right? Unreal. It's such a fun job.
Unreal. Amazing. Hey, what's up, Rob? How you doing, man? Just got a viewer say what up, so just saying hey back. Rob, my man Rob Lohman. Cool dude.
Oh, hey, Rob.
What up? So question for you. How much involvement do you have after a client would discharge then from a program that you might place them in?
It just depends on whether
Sure.
or not we still have that agreement. So
Got it.
realistically, and it just depends on kind of that client up front. For the most part, I'm working with families for about 6 months minimum. So if they're hiring me
Epic.
from the get-go, right before they need kind of that residential or kind of that primary stabilization level of care, then I'm going to be working with them for 6 months. At that 6-month mark, if they've already discharged ahead of that 6-month mark, then I'm still working with them on that transition. Well, where are they next? So I can kind of continue with them. Now, at any point, so let's say they don't discharge until after that 6 months, if the family decides, you know what, we don't really like the way that you work, or like we need even more communication, like on a daily basis, and we're just not aligning well, I try my damnedest to make sure before the family even hires me that it really is a good match for me, just as much as it is for them. But we're human, and needs change. And so at any point, a family could say, you know what, we think that we got this from here on out. There's no judgment, right? The agreement's said and done. So it's kind of like, I wish you the best. If you want a recommendation for other consultants, I can certainly recommend other folks for you. Otherwise, if you want to do it on your own, that's totally okay too. I wish you the best of luck. That's kind of how that rolls.
Totally. No ego involved. You get it.
No.
We all want, I think all of us just want the best care for any people that we see or we can refer to. I think it's why we do what we do. A big part of it is building this type of know, like, and trust network to be able to do that. I think it's a huge part of it. Speaking of transitions and families, seriously, if you could self-disclose a little bit about our topic today, about 4 tips for parents who have college students experiencing homesickness. What was it like for you? And then I'll share my experience as well. What was it like for you when you transitioned into college as an 18 or 17-year-old person?
Yeah. And
the world was your oyster. What was that like for you?
I am an open door, so you can ask any questions.
Sure.
And this is actually, I thank you for asking this, because I also think that my answer is exactly why I'm so fascinated in supporting young adults right now. Because I'm a millennial, full disclosure. I'm in my mid-30s. When I went to college, I truly, and maybe my parents will tell you otherwise, but I remember it being like the example where truly parents are slowly driving by my residence hall. They open the door, they push me out along with my like 3 bags of belongings. Because back then too, there was no like fixing up your residence hall to look like a 5-star hotel room.
Yeah.
You know?
It was a place you lay your head.
Yes. I mean, we actually still had we had a landline for
my God. So did I.
So I actually had a cell phone at that point. I had only had it for 2 years, and I only had it because I got lost, and my parents saw it as a way to stay in touch with me. I didn't send text messages. I was, none of that existed. I mean, it was like an old school Nokia phone. But
the cube.
I remember the transition being kind of like I just ripped a Band-Aid off. Like I was not as codependent or so close to my parents back then. I mean, I certainly am connected with my family now. I love them dearly. In fact, I communicate with them way more now as someone in their mid-30s, but I think that's just because the evolution of communication has changed in general. So while I was in college, I mean, like my parents would call and leave me a voicemail on my landline and say like, hey, we haven't heard from you in like 2 weeks. Are you alive? Like, are you okay?
Sure.
And it was truly because I was just eating up being involved on college. It was just like college, woo. And so obviously with that kind of social drive, my academics suffered. So that was one thing that I ended up having to kind of, I wouldn't say struggle through, but I definitely was resilient because by the end of my fall semester, my grades were the lowest they'd ever been in my life. I was embarrassed. But I also, I mean, I didn't fail anything, but I just did way worse than I could have. And I knew that it had everything to do with the fact that I didn't balance, all components to college. And so it wasn't homesickness for me. It was the exact opposite. I was just like, I'm not anywhere near my parents. I'm going to have way too much fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, freedom. And I'm so fortunate that I was not in any type of legal trouble because that's a whole other conversation in itself.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I realize that I'm lucky.
Me too.
So yeah, it was definitely different than what college students are experiencing nowadays. But tell me a little bit about your
Oh,
first
girl, you don't
semester.
even want to know. Yeah, I mean, I think all our viewers out there, family included, could obviously know. Sorry, family. How much of a struggle my freshman year was. I mean, I was a hot fucking mess. I mean, first couple semesters or quarters, as on the quarter system, were great. You know, just kind of getting my bearings straight, and then that last quarter, man, like oh man, did my grades suffer? Were my relationships terrible? I had no balance at all. I felt extremely held down. I felt extremely inauthentic to myself. I felt like I was in a place where, you know, I was like, why am I in college? Like that was my thought. Like, why am I doing this? Am I just on an escalator? Like, am I actually feeling like I want to be here? And I definitely had serious thoughts about like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And like you're saying, it took a lot of connection with friends and communication with some family that were like, you know what, you got this. And view it rather as a whole kind of life propulsion as it academically or for your job, as it is really just more so like you finding yourself and experiencing things that you never would have if you stayed in your hometown or if you went to school with a bunch of people that you knew in regards to that. So, I mean, I remember that so vividly, and I think I'm glad I experienced it. I wish I would have experienced it with more support or knew the resources that I could take advantage of. I just such a stubborn asshole. Like I didn't want to. Like I was like, I'm gonna make it on my own. I'm gonna do this. I don't need help, any support or anything. Until I finally realized, like, it took my parents to visit me over Memorial Day, and for me to break up with the woman that I was dating on that day they visited, to like really realize like who I was. Shit was whack, dude. Like my mom goes, "You just broke up with your girlfriend at dinner or at lunch?" And I was like, yeah, I needed to. Like I needed that weight to be left off of me as being such a serial monogamist or relationship person. Like I had no sense of self or identity. So I was like, I did it. They visited and they were like, well, okay, we support you. So okay, cool. I feel like I'm like living, which was pretty funny. Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Love
Our
it.
Parents were the best.
Oh, the best. I don't know. We lucked out for sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of parents now, I mean, I think this is the perfect time to get into this idea of 4 tangible tips that parents can have with college students at this moment that are experiencing this idea of homesickness or just, you know, lack of sense of self or confusion. So please take it away. And between each tip, like, let's break it down a little bit further and say how it can actually kind of help, how we can relate that more to our viewers out there. So take it away.
Perfect. Well, I'll start just by explaining too that the importance in these sharing these tips is that it's also with the mindset that the parenting generations that are now like Gen Z, right? Or iGen, however you want to call them, those are the young folks that are in college right now. In fact, that's actually like kindergarten through like age 23 right now. Their parents, which are Gen X or the like tail end of boomers, their parenting style is very different than your parents or my parents, because they're with that combination of access to more communication or, you know, just over involvement. It exists. I mean, but if you're a parent, you can be pissed about these generalizations that I'm sharing, and it could apply to you or it may not apply to you, but just kind of take it how you want it. But if you have a college student right now that is in college, specifically a first semester or first term freshman, right now they are probably in the thick of homesickness. And why I say that is because up until, you kind of, Elliot, you hit the nail on the head by saying we were kind of on this conveyor belt. Well, that still exists for high school seniors, because until they get to college and all of a sudden they have a separation from what they've known for 18 years, which includes their family, their academic focus, literally their like scheduled down to the hour involvement of everything. And now all of a sudden it's just like, oh my God, I have so much time. I don't know what to do with myself. And so then you have this existential thought of, why am I here? And 100%. Then that sinks in, because sometimes the weight of that, like, oh my gosh, my identity is this overachieved high school student. Like I'm at this elite school, or I'm at, at wherever. anyways, I'm getting to the point, which is all of a sudden they are disconnected from their family, somebody that they've been like really, truly attached to at the hip. So if you are a parent and you have a young adult that's in this situation right now and you want to do everything in your power to make it comfortable for them, the first thing that I would recommend is to set boundaries with communication.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll break that down.
Please.
Because I also like have a little bit of a smirk on my face when I do that, because it's so hard to do that.
No,
right? Because we can text all the time. We can call all the time. You can look at Instagram. You can look at Facebook. You could snap, chat, like all of those forms of communication. Clearly, I don't even know every like mode of
you can
social
TikTok.
Yes, I don't know.
I don't know either. I stay away from that shit, man. I'm like business, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, so for a parent, it's really important for you to actually be the one who voices setting the boundaries with your young adult. So if they're the one who's constantly sending you messages, like I'm really homesick, like even if they're saying it or not saying it, but they're saying it in a roundabout way, like I'm really lonely, or I haven't made any friends. I don't like any of my professors. Like I haven't made any friends, the litany of how that rolls can go anyway.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's really important for you as a parent to say, like, I love you. I care about you. I hear you, that we miss you too. Right? Like, I want you to know that I miss you too. Absolutely. That validation is so important. And for the parent, it's so important for you not to say, oh, this is you wanting me to rescue you, so let me come get you. Right?
Oh, the fix-it parent.
Oh, my goodness. Or the parent that truly, like, when you moved your young adult into the residence hall, you gave them a metaphor, like you were dropped off in the jungle, right? Like, here's your rescue radio. If you need me, just push that button and I'll send a helicopter. And it's like,
I'll drive 3 hours. Right.
Exactly. I'll drive 7 hours. Just let me know the moment that you need me, I'll be on the road. So it's really important as a parent, like, this is the opportunity for you to let go and show your child, your adult child, that it's okay for them to let go too. I'm not saying completely forget your relationship. That's not what this is about. It's saying, like, we're going to set some boundaries on what healthy communication looks like and what is too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that you mentioned too about this whole idea of fixing it or being that parent that's always going to be there is allowing your child to experience uncomfortable feelings and allowing them to lean into those feelings to the point where they can find within themselves and empower themselves to realize that, be aware of it, and then seek help if they need to. And starting from you, for sure, as a parent, but also other resources, like you're saying, that are available on college campuses these days.
Yeah. So, well, and we'll just jump right to that.
Yes.
That's obviously one of my tips too. So, gosh, Elliot, you're just stealing my thunder.
I'm not trying. I'm trying to transition you along, baby girl. I'm doing a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, you are. Thank you.
No problem.
Definitely ask for help. That's one of the things as a parent. Encourage your young adult. So if they, again, you set those boundaries and they're still not holding to it, and it is totally tugging on your heartstrings, the message you need, or like the mantra that you need to start kind of using and also sharing with your young adult, is it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help, and then direct them on ways that they can self-advocate on and off campus. So that could be, obviously there's plenty of resources on campuses. If they're in a metropolitan area, the resources off campus tend to be a little bit more abundant than those that are in rural locations. Obviously that's a selfish plug for, like, if you're as a parent overwhelmed and you have no idea what type of services that they need, like what's available off campus, that's when you can reach out to a therapeutic consultant, and we might be able to kind of link you up with an on the ground treatment team putting together for your young adult. So asking for help. I mean, there is so much, like, truly, colleges are doing, like, puppy petting days. They have, like,
that's amazing.
Literally.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That's just one example. I mean, we're talking
you probably got a bag of
mindfulness centers. I mean, we're talking massage chairs. We're talking, spaces
free therapy, right?
Yes. Well, it's free. However, you've paid for it. That's the catch. Like, the students, you paid for it.
So take advantage of it.
take advantage of it. And I'll also say it, like, similar to any consultant or any therapist, if you try one and you don't like them, try another, because there's literally hundreds, if not thousands. And so the idea is find somebody that works for you. So if you go on campus, if you visit one therapist and you're like, oh, I don't like this therapist, it doesn't mean that therapy is not for you. It just means that that particular therapist wasn't a good fit. So move on, find somebody else.
Yeah. And that's part of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And being an adult, right? Just asking for help is a skill of interdependence. I think we push this idea of like, you need to be independent. And realistically, it's not about being completely independent, because that's when we isolate. We're talking about you need to be a true adult. You need to know how to ask for help. You need to be able to problem solve who it is that you need to ask and what it is that you need to ask. And then if they can't get you there, then kind of navigate that process to find somebody else. It's about basically tapping into your network of resources. And with Generation Z, it's a hell of a lot harder for them to do that, because truly, again, I'm generalizing, but parents of college students have really done all of this for they've done this for their kids their entire lives. So now all of a sudden it's like, wait, you want me to ask who for what? I have no idea where to even do that or how to do it. So now we've got to teach them all of these life skills. Love it.
All right. So that was tip 2. Whew, let's get to number 3. We got this. So you're killing it.
I know. I'm trying. Well, I think
doing amazing.
Thank you. To go back to the first tip, which is, obviously the communication boundaries. I do think that it's important for a parent, if you're setting the boundary for your kid to not communicate with you, I'd also, so this is tip 3, encourage you to tell your young adult to set boundaries on their social media usage. So knowing that they are a college student, and if they don't already have a job, if they're not already like engaged on campus, if they're only in classes, I mean, we're talking like 2 weeks into the semester, like the transition, the dust from the parents driving away still hasn't settled. Like that's how fresh we're talking. So if they've got all of a sudden this free time on their hands, it's really easy to get sucked into being on Instagram, like scrolling through snaps for hours. And this is why it's so important to limit that, or to encourage your young adult to limit that, is because if they were a high achiever, even if they weren't a high achiever actually in high school, but now all of a sudden they've gone off to higher education, they're at a completely foreign school, they don't have any friends, their friends are off at different schools, they're doing all these fun things, and they're showing that they're doing all these fun things and pictures, that it just paints a picture. Exactly. It's just unrealistic, right? Or again, the highlight reel. So you're just only seeing the highlights. And ultimately, that's such a quick and fast way for somebody to feel extremely, self-conscious, comparing themselves to others. Your self-esteem's going to spiral. You're going to wish, there's all these kind of
the rabbit hole.
It is the rabbit hole. There's almost this like shaming mentality of like, oh gosh, I'm not that person. And then it veers off into that existential conversation, self-conversation of why am I here? Right? Like, ugh. So it gets really, shit. It really does. And I can tell you, speaking of which, I mean, even last year I had a couple students that ended up, or young adults, former college students that ended up hiring me. They weren't even on campus for 6 weeks. And a part of them withdrawing was this was like a part of their specific story, was that they were comparing themselves to their former high school classmates, and they were just significantly depressed. Like you hit the nail on the head again, like rabbit hole. It is such a time suck too, because then all of a sudden you start to feel guilty about, well, I didn't do anything today, or I didn't do my homework. And it can snowball so quickly. So if you're a parent of a college student, please help them or encourage them to limit that social media usage and experience college for themselves.
Allow themselves to blossom into whatever they feel as if or deem necessary to do so. Because like you're saying, I mean, it's so easy to get in a space where I can look at somebody else, want what they have, and not really understand that I have that too. It's just in a way that may present itself in my own space. And people are constantly, I mean, I work with enough, kids that age too, to know how much shame is involved, how much guilt. I mean, it is debilitating. To the point of, like you said, mass depression, sleeping all the time, not eating.
Yeah.
Just
It's
totally down that hole.
Total spiral completely.
And it's real. It's so fucking real. It's a shame. No, it's not a shame. I shouldn't say that. It's so real how prevalent it is. That's the word. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on to 4. Tip 4, please. Number 4. Number 4.
It's so cliche, but it's also so true. As a parent, encourage your young adult to get involved on campus. So I will also do like a little asterisk here, which says, hey, parents, don't do the research for your young adult and highlight specific clubs or organizations that you think that they need to get involved with. This is like the first opportunity for them to truly do this on their own. So all you have to say is like, I hope you're getting connected on campus, or like, hey, where did you go today? Did you meet anybody? And don't ask about a specific club, or like, hey, I was on a Facebook parent support group and Johnny's mom said that Johnny's in.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know what the hell just happened. But yeah. Hey! Said, don't compare Johnny's experience to your experience. Okay.
Yes.
Allow your child to be in that place to find those things on their own. Yes. Keep on going. I like what you're saying.
Well, I was going to say, it's the perfect opportunity for you as a parent to truly not do that research or the navigation or connection for your young adult. Like, yes, every bone in your body wants to be like, oh, this is convenient, right? Like, I know, whatever, Johnny's mom, and she looks awesome, and I'd like to be friends with her. And it's like, that's not how this works. You have a young adult now. Let's let them like take it away. And I think a part of that actually is a little bit of grief and loss for parents about your expectation that you have for your young adult. There's nothing wrong with who they are going to become. And at this point, once they're in college, you got to do this. Like, you know what? I did the best that I could. And moving forward, I just look forward to seeing what they do and who they become and the route that they take. And so think like looping that back to the whole homesickness piece. It's just really important for you as a parent to identify too that difference of when it is homesickness and then actually when it becomes a little bit more. And that's the fine line where you as a parent can step in and say, okay, I've done these things, right? I've encouraged them to get involved. I've encouraged them to limit their social media. Like, we've been in communication and I've set those boundaries.
Be the helicopter.
I've been using,
be the co-pilot if you need to be.
I've been using curling as a recent example, because I'm like, all right, parents, okay, you're doing that little like clearing out the ice so it like hits the nail right on the head. I obviously know nothing about curling other than what it looks like. But
good metaphor.
Yes, right. Okay, maybe I should actually learn what that little puck thing is called.
Give a shit.
Touche.
It makes sense. That's what matters.
Well, that's the whole point as a parent. It's just like, look, okay, now you've done what you can. Right. Yes. You actually believe it's more than homesickness. They're not over this hump. And whereas before, like timeline wise for millennials used to be like, sometimes homesickness would like, they'd get through it like in a month and a half, or even like a full semester of like, it's okay. But like, we're at a distance. It's all good. Now, again, with Generation Z, it's such a switch where it's like 2 days, 3 weeks. Like, at what point does it become like a mental health concern versus just, I shouldn't say just, but it is just homesickness.
Totally. You to summarize those tips so well. I think they're so tangible. Honestly, thumbs up, viewers out there, if you feel like you can relate to this and really bring these tips and Joanna's energy into this idea. And before we wrap up today, Joanna, please, if you could let people know how to get a hold of you, via website, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, I think that'd be really helpful.
Sure.
And then we'll sign off. So please take it away again.
The irony is that I'm on all those social media platforms, but it's all for my business, right?
Right.
So you could find me on Facebook under Lilley Consulting. You could follow me on Instagram at Lilley Consulting. My website is lilley-consulting, and that's spelled Lilley .com. But you can reach out. My contact information is on all 3 of those platforms.
Beautiful.
And that's truly where you'll not just find my contact information, but additional resources specifically for parents of kind of college age students that are struggling with mental health and substance abuse.
Amazing. I was just about to ask you if you had resources on there, and you just answered the question. So amazing. I love it.
Hey.
Great. Joanna, you've been honestly one of my favorite guests. Don't tell the others out there that I said that out loud. But the energy, the excitement, the amount of knowledge you have is immense. And I just hope and I pray to Jesus, right, to God, that people will reach out to you, because I think your service is so necessary and needed, and you are such a good face and representation of what this field has to offer. So appreciate you. Virtual hug. You've been amazing. I will see you sooner than later. The Head of Therapist is out. Peace up, people. Catch you later.
Thanks, Elliot.
You're welcome.